Interviews and insights with the biggest names in Canadian baseball. This is the CBN Podcast.
Team Canada had their chances early and just couldn't capitalize. And for the fifth straight World Baseball Classic, they failed to make the quarterfinals.
I think a lot of people are going to be pretty proud of the way that this Team Canada at the World Baseball Classic performance. They, I think they proved a lot of doubters wrong, especially some of the younger players on the team. I think in our preview show, I certainly wasn't as optimistic as many others, and I think we both weren't super optimistic about this team. And yet they pushed it to a point where if they had been able to beat Mexico, then they would have gone on to the quarterfinals for the first time in their history at this tournament. And I believe 5 tries. So, I think there are certainly a lot of positives to take. Although it is still leaves kind of a bad taste in your mouth, the way things ended against Mexico. Mexico played a really, really complete game all around. It was quite impressive, I must say.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important to keep it in perspective here, not only for Canada, for the guys that weren't here, but you look around the tournament, the Dominican Republic is out, Chinese Taipei is out, Korea is out. So it's tough to move on in this tournament, especially with good teams like Mexico, the USA. Colombia was no easy opponent. So it's important to keep it in perspective, but obviously disappointing from a standpoint of not moving on and not making that next step. But the future is certainly bright.
Absolutely. And again, you're going up against a team in Mexico that has established big leaguers, right? Randy Arozarena had a huge game, 5 RBI, right? Rowdy Tellez, the home run and 3 RBI. Pretty frustrating to watch some of those Rowdy Tellez swings, especially if you're a Jays fan. That changeup that was almost in the dirt that he took out of the park. A few instances like that, but I thought overall this Team Canada had a good amount of fight in it and resilience, and I thought the lineup, they throughout the day they had points where there were runners on, and they just couldn't come up with that clutch hit. And I do wonder if a Freddie Freeman in the lineup would have changed that at all.
And it was a tough start. I didn't think Zastrinski looked bad. I mean, the first inning he had that questionable hit by pitch. That I still don't think it was a hit by pitch, but you know what? That's the review system. You have to have definitive evidence to overturn what's on the field. Infield single that went all of 75 feet, and then Tellez the balk, and then Tellez's not very hard hit ball scores 2. So not a great start. Canada bounces back in the bottom half, puts up one. I was messaging you, Jackson, saying just get one here and kind of weather that storm. And then they got the bases loaded with less than 2 out, and it kind of felt like they left a lot to be desired in that inning.
You get one across, and you got to feel good about that. Totally, right, at that point. But it's just, that Mexico is going to keep on pouring on the offense, and they're going to keep on getting runners on. So you got to be able to match and try to take control of the game a little bit. And that was certainly missed opportunities. But again, if they were able to keep it close, and for a large portion of the game they did, they would have been all right. But things kind of just got away from them after Smith. After things were after that 6th inning, it felt like it was over. There wasn't really a lot of opportunity to really establish a bit of a rally. And that's a credit to Mexico too, right? Like Urquidy looked a little shaky. There was a lot of traffic, but they got the job done. Right, the bullpen was quite good, I must say, and that was definitely something for me too. Like if you look at the Canada lineup, the mindset could have been, all right, guys, like just get through Urquidy, get to the bullpen, keeping it close, like we talked about yesterday, right? And as you were saying throughout, and you thought they might be able to do that at a lot of different points in this game, and maybe even get to a point late in the game where they had the lead. Still a very good run, I think, but it definitely leaves a little more to be desired.
Yeah, and I think I'm looking, at the box score now, and I think I'm counting 10 walks by the Canadian pitching staff, and I think that adds to the frustration when you think about the guys that aren't here. I mean, no Pop, no Romano, no Wick, certainly hurts. And then there's question, whether they should have gone to Brash in that inning, where kind of a Arozarena broke it open. Hindsight's 2020, I guess, but it's tough to see Brash not pitching that game, but. again, they hung with them through 5 innings, and I thought that might have been enough to give them a chance late, but obviously the Mexican offense couldn't be held down for long, and that's the way it goes.
You're right. That was the pivotal point of the game, though. And he goes with Cade Smith. Ernie Witt does. And you're right. I mean, it's that age-old argument, right? What's going on right now in bullpens across Major League Baseball is, do you use your best arm in the biggest point of the game, even if that's in, say, the 6th or 7th inning? I probably would have there, but again, you're so right, Matt. Like it's an imperfect debate. You could debate that forever because he didn't do it, so we'll never know what would have happened. But it certainly does kind of keep you wondering. But at the end of the day, you can't go back and change those things. And you're right. Like the Canadian pitching staff, 10 walks issued. It's going to be difficult to work around those things, especially against a lineup that has hitters like Arozarena and Rowdy Tellez, who were doing their thing yesterday.
You can get away with that against teams like Great Britain. No disrespect to Great Britain, but you do that against this Mexico lineup, it's going to come back to burn you at some point, and it did.
The Baseball Zone's semi-private clinics are coming back for a new spring session. Small classes, more one-on-one instruction from top coaches, and access to the best baseball technology. From the end of April to early June, you can develop your hitting or pitching skills as you enter the summer season. Sign up today at thebaseballzone.ca before they're gone.
But let's get back to the positives. Obviously, we mentioned the younger players. Canada will not have to qualify for the 2026 World Baseball Classic, so these guys will get another crack at it. We know that, which is certainly nice. This team should qualify, but should doesn't mean they will, right? So you want to stay out of that possibility. As you saw with this tournament, anything can happen. So you want to stay out of that qualifying process.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's good for Canadian baseball in general, right? To have that sort of that comfort level, right? And that sort of confidence that, hey, we're going to be back and hopefully looking to do some damage. You mentioned it off the top, kind of like having the expectations moving forward. I think now that they've established this, I think, hopefully they get a few more established big leaguers. That would be nice. But B, that, these young players now, some of these guys, you planting the seeds, if you will, for the next tournament. And I think that that's become abundant. You look at, if I may draw a comparison to soccer, right? Or football. I don't want to piss anyone off. I know we have a couple European listeners. In that case, it was the same thing in Qatar for Team Canada, right? Young team building a foundation for the next one, much like this team is. Now, this team could have had more established veterans, and the nature of baseball is much different than soccer or football, where the best players often don't play for their countries. Obviously, in this case, that was apparent. But, you look at guys like Bo Naylor, right? Otto Lopez, Edward Julian, who all had fantastic tournaments. Like, those are great showings for them. To have that confidence, to know that they're, qualified for the next tournament, they're going to be around. I mean, these guys are probably going to play pretty prominent roles.
Yeah, and I think Edward Julian in 2026 will be 27. Owen Casey will be 23, somewhere around there.
They will be big leaguers. Yeah,
they will more than likely be big leaguers if they continue on their current trajectory. And they will be the guys that Canada will want to commit to play. Not to mention the Quantrells, the Pavettas, the Sorokas will all still be, more than able of getting guys out in this tournament at that point in time. So it's exciting to look forward to 2026. I know Canadian baseball fans don't want to hear that right now. But as the next few years go on, it's definitely gonna be exciting leading into the next tournament.
Yeah, I think you definitely, you take this tournament and you take the good from it, because this is probably what Canada deserved. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been an upset, let's be honest, if they beat Mexico, considering you look at their lineup, you look at who was starting for them, Jose Urquidy. Like, it seemed like Mexico had the better team on paper. We talked about that yesterday. And really, in general, it did seem like in this group, it probably should be the U.S. and Mexico moving on. But that's the beauty of the tournament, right? Is the level of randomness, especially in a sport like baseball, where it's so focused on the marathon. And then, you go into a tournament like this, and it's just a full-on sprint, and it completely changes sort of the way that you play the game, you manage the game. It's such a fun tournament. And I really hope that Canadian baseball fans embraced it this time and look forward to the next one.
Yeah, and I hope they, despite some maybe disappointment and frustration, they really appreciate what they got to see with some of these younger players and continue to follow these guys along, because like we've talked about numerous times, this is the future of Baseball Canada. And it's a bright future.
Yeah, I'm trying to draw any more sort of broad conclusions here. I would say one thing too, like I think Greg Hamilton and you know, sort of just the development staff have done a really fantastic job. I can't stress that enough. To get to this point where you've got, you know, guys like Owen Casey hitting consistently, and the way that Edward Julian was able to lead off and look like a established major leaguer kind of right off the top throughout this tournament. Julian was one of the best players in the entire tournament. He hit what, 538 or something, right? So, you know, you got to give credit where it's due, especially. And I think that that's a really base hits, walks, those things will happen in baseball games, but like the overall trajectory of the program, you know what I mean, is definitely trending in a very, very good direction.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You got to step back sometimes and look big picture, not look so at the small picture, so to speak, in 4 games in a 4-day span.
Yeah.
It's going in the right direction, and Canadian baseball fans should be excited. Well, that's a wrap for the Mexico-Canada recap here, and that's a wrap for Canada's tournament, unfortunately, but a lot of good things to take away. We hope you enjoyed listening, and we can't wait to do this again in 2026.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out Canadian Baseball Network for extensive and comprehensive coverage of the latest in Canadian baseball. And the Baseball Zone, Canada's leading instructional baseball academy and training home to thousands of MLB pro, college, and youth baseball players.